you have?
Isn't this graph a little time dependent? Like for older people, being hedonist a little may be okay. Like sometimes they know how much they're going to live and how much they should worry about the future.
Yeah, I mean, for anybody, a little hedonist is okay. It's not like, you know, doing something just to have a little pleasure in the present moment is necessarily bad. But it's more like if that is the kind of, the defining, you know, kind of modus operandi of your whole life is just, you know, just pleasure in the present moment, then it can become a problem. But he makes the point, actually. Happiness actually is not just like the rat race, not just always putting everything, you know, your enjoyment off till later and sacrificing everything now, and not just the other extreme of just doing whatever you enjoy now and not giving any thought to later, but a balance between the two.
Yeah.
Doing things, you know, you can do things that are a little...
And the balance could change with age as well. Like if someone is already retired, they don't need to worry so much about investments, and they can sort of see how to spend the time in the way they...
Yeah. But then another way that people procrastinate is like not thinking about death. I mean, it's a big thing in many societies. That people, it's a taboo topic. It's something, it's kind of so traumatic, or the thought of it is so traumatic, or experiences of other people, friends and family members dying in the past is so upsetting that they just don't want to think about it, don't want to talk about it, and then therefore don't prepare for it. But then the time is going to come when we all have to face the experience of ourselves dying. And then if we're not prepared at all, then it can be very, you know, very disturbing, very scary and kind of unpleasant. So that could be, I mean, it's true. Now at different stages of your life, this kind of graph applies differently. But even in our old age, it could be kind of a little hedonistic tendency to not think about the reality of, you know, your life ending and dying. You know? So a wise way to lead life at that time is to think about how, you know, death is a natural process and what actually happens at that time, and how do I want to experience that process? How will I be able to let go of my body, my possessions, my family and friends, my senses? So prepare for that. Yeah, please.
We talked about another dimension so that you're all alone.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. When you die?
Sorry?
When you die, you mean?
It's not about now.
Yeah. When you're all alone now, yeah.
I'm alone now.
Yeah.
So I don't know what my future is going to be.
Yeah. Sure.
Because I don't want to move into a senior citizen community. And I've got some help. I've got acquired a lady who stays there in the night.
Yeah. Okay.
No, what I'm trying to say is that can be a question mark.
Yeah, also, that situation will last or not. Yeah. Yeah. Yes?
So we talked about negative bias. So we are accumulating a lot of negative news from the media. So sometimes it also gives a alertness, right? So the news kind of news, even though it is negative events, so it helps us to understand, so this can be, we can avoid it in case this kind of event comes. It happens to us.
Yeah.
So sometimes it is also useful news, right?
Yeah.
So how it can be, we need to avoid such news. So that's the question. So another question is that so we are actually dealing with the people who are actually also, we are actually thinking good about others also, for the benefit of others also.
Yeah.
But the opposite person is not showing the, his behavior is same, is not showing the right behavior, right?
Okay.
So still our attitude is same. Our attitude is that for the benefit of others, right?
Yeah.
So, but eventually we are acting ourselves only, right? If you are
hurting
dealing with the same
ourselves
person.
That is if you're keeping an expectation.
If you are with the same person
Yeah.
who is actually doing again the negative behavior with us,
Yeah.
even though we are thinking good for them,
Yeah.
but being with the person again it's like acting ourselves, right? So in that case,
okay, let me address the first question first. It's easier. How do we deal with negative in the news? Yeah, it's true. I mean, it can be. Yeah, it's not like we shouldn't read the news. We should just totally ignore the news. Like ignorance is bliss is kind of a naive strategy for living, right? So yeah, like if there's potential threats to you, like SARS or some virus or some scam that's happening. Like I know monks, who they don't know anything about how these scams where people send you emails saying, oh, you've won a lottery or you've won a prize from such and such a thing, but first you have to deposit 20,000 rupees in this bank account and then you'll get the prize. Some monks, they've gotten scammed out of like lakhs and lakhs of rupees that way. So yeah, it's good to you need some street smarts and you need awareness about like what's going on in the world. But it's helpful to know about this negativity bias so that we can offset. We can recognize, yeah, there's an emphasis on negative things reported in the media, so that we don't just believe that the media is giving us a totally clear picture of like how things are in the world. That there's only, if there's a crime that happens in Bangalore, it's going to be reported. But that same day, there's 10 million people who experience no crime whatsoever. So, but we tend to forget about the whole main group and just remember the crime. And then if that happens again and again and again, then we feel like, oh, Bangalore is a crime-ridden city, because we just hear about all the crimes that happen all the time. So it's a distorted view. So we have to try to have a balanced view, and oftentimes that requires using logic and reasoning and looking for sources of information other than just the daily news. One. And then, so the second part of your question, yeah, it's a good question. But it's a typical kind of concern. Like if we just kind of have good intention towards other people and try to always do right by them, but they continually hurt us and take advantage of us, then what do? Well, we have to, if we're letting someone else continually harm us, they're creating negative karma, which is going to ripen on them in the future. So actually it's not beneficial for them, it's also not beneficial for us. So it's okay to point out to other people, in a wise way or skillful way, like what we think they're doing something is wrong, and with reason, not just because we think that or we feel that. But even before we do that, like try to figure out, well, what's going on. Usually we just look at on the surface, well, this person is doing this to me and I don't like it, it's hurtful to me, without really thinking about, 1, 2, 3 layers behind what their action is. Like why are they doing like that? Why are they acting like that? Do they have some kind of misperception about me, or do they even realize? Oftentimes people don't even realize that what they're doing, that we think it's wrong. They think we like that, or they think it's helpful to us somehow, or maybe they even have the motivation to help us, but we feel very hurt by it. So there can be so many distortion in the way two different people perceive the same interaction. So first think about, well, okay, what is their intention? Then why are they doing that? Then what is going on in their mind? Is my perception really accurate? It can help to talk to a third person to see what do they think about what's going on, to kind of see, is my perception of this thing accurate or not? And then, so one way, if we understand someone's motivation or for acting in a way that we feel is harmful, it can help generate compassion for that person, maybe out of ignorance. They don't really see. They're just not perceptive. They're not sensitive enough to see that that's hurtful to me or another person. So that can help generate compassion. Another way could be that they're just really irritated and upset within their own mind, which can help generate compassion. Yeah. So, but then it's not like we can't address those difficult issues with the person. We can confront them, talk to them about it, and then if we have to, we can also just try to reduce our interaction with that person in a worst case scenario where they can't change. It's really destructive for us, so we just try to keep a distance from the person. But that doesn't mean in our heart, it doesn't mean we don't give up on caring about them and wishing for their well-being. In our heart, we should always care about and not give up anyone. But we also have to be realistic in realizing our limitations. We all have certain, we can be patient up to a certain degree right now. Eventually, we can handle any experience, right, ideally. But now we can only be patient and deal with a certain amount of provocation, and then if we lose it again and again and again, it's not beneficial for anyone. So we need to, become more and more generate our strength and our ability to deal with more and more difficult circumstances gradually, without totally overwhelming ourselves in an unrealistic kind of way. Other questions? Yeah?
Can you say like what is exactly in detail about the difference between this hedonistic and being happy?
Oh, in detail. Yeah, so hedonistic is just a short term, it's just striving for short-term happiness, right? Short-term pleasure, short-term enjoyment, right? Without thinking about whether that's contributing to my long-term. So the main difference is whether there's an idea of like any long-term goal or anything meaningful in life. Like, so the hedonistic outlook, they're not looking at what's like really meaningful in life, what's going to cause me to have like a meaningful or life or you know, contribute to my own long-term well-being in this life and future lives, or for myself and others. It's a very small kind of perspective, and it's mostly self-centered. Whereas, you know, happiness is thinking not only about enjoyment now, but enjoying life now in a way that it's part of a long-term process, that I'm working towards my long-term goals. You know, working towards some objective or some principles or some kind of understanding of what's meaningful in life, that if I know that I'm progressing towards that, that will bring satisfaction, right? That will bring fulfillment. So it's more long-term perspective, right? Also enjoying now, but working towards long-term enjoyment. Whereas hedonistic is just enjoying now without any thought for long-term, you know, what may come. Is that clear? Questions, comments? No.
So that happiness
Hold
itself.
on, she had her hand up. She's following the rules.
Sorry.
You guys are just... we'll come back to you.
So you spoke about what cultivates happiness, the five, you mentioned 5 points.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, so if I look at it through the Buddhist views, are they still relevant?
They are, yeah, they're relevant, but they would be described in a little different way.
Yeah, so would you like to do that for us?
Sure, the Buddhist, more like a Buddhist view of what are causes of happiness. Yeah, it's interesting, you know, in Buddhism, let me think. I'm not sure, and you all help me if any of you know, but, you know, first of all, like, the definition of what is happiness, I mean, in modern psychology, also it's not clear. Like, I mean, think about it for yourself. It's a very interesting question for yourself. I mean, I find it very interesting to think about when I say happiness, like, am I happy, am I not happy? Like, what am I talking about, actually? What exactly is happiness? I mean, you can find so many different flavors. It's like ice cream. Like, what exactly is ice cream? I mean, ice cream's easier because it's, okay, it's milk and sugar, and you mix it together, and it's cold until it becomes creamy, then you add flavors. But there's so many different flavors of ice cream. You know, every ice cream has a flavor, right? And without the flavor, it's like, it's nothing really. It's the flavor of the ice cream that really makes it enjoyable, the texture. So happiness, yeah, it's like we can talk about, you know, in words, try to describe happiness, but that, if someone, you know, imagine someone who never had any experience of happiness, like someone who never experienced ice cream, and you try to describe ice cream to them, but it's quite, you know, they're not really going to get it until they taste it. So we have to start, I think the best way for ourselves to define what happiness is look at different experiences of it. Well, you know, when I was in this happened, I felt really happy, and this happened, I felt different kind of happiness. Like when I went for, you know, a walk to a mountain, in a forest, a beautiful forest, and maybe went up to a mountain, one kind of happiness, and then went swimming with friends, another kind of happiness, and then maybe when, you know, I read this book, I felt another kind of happiness. When I met this person, I felt, there's also many different flavors of happiness, but none of which cover the whole thing. But so in Buddhism, first of all, the definition of, well, see, yeah, I always go back to Tibetan because I study in Tibet. So in Tibetan, the word for happy is kipu, right? Kipu. But it's more like it's not like a word you'll find much in like texts. It's more like a colloquial sort of word. You know, I'm happy. And it means more like a daily kind of, you know, I'm enjoying, it's nice, you know, things are going well. It's not talking about deeply satisfied. So there's another word, dewa. Dewa is more like, yeah, more just covers the whole broad spectrum of everything we're talking about, happiness. It can be short-term, it can be long-term. So dewa is defined as a feeling. You know? It's not a thought, it's not a conceptual thought. It's a feeling, and a feeling, it can go with a sense, it can go with a sense pleasure, like when I drink, it's hot and I drink some cool water, I have a body sense consciousness. I feel this coolness and wetness, which is pleasant. So there's a pleasant feeling that goes with that. That's one kind of dewa, right? And then I can think about, maybe I think about someone I have faith in, like the Dalai Lama or Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and I have this more subtle kind of feeling of joy about thinking about their positive qualities and how they benefited me. That's also, there's a pleasant feeling that goes with that. So in one way, happiness is described as like pleasant feelings. But then in one way, that doesn't, I don't know, there's some sense of that, does that really capture like everything we mean by happiness? It is always, there always is a pleasant feeling that goes with it, but it seems like the happiness can be something more than just a feeling. I mean, there is a pleasant feeling that is always there, but is happiness just, like when we talk about happiness in all the different contexts that we experience it, is it just a feeling, or is it more, like if you have this, you do something that you feel is really important and really meaningful to you, and you do it, there's a pleasant feeling, but there can also be a sense of really self-satisfaction, like, oh, I'm really glad I did that. That was really meaningful for me to do. That's something I'll remember the rest of my life. Of course, there's a pleasant feeling there, but it seems like that feeling of pleasantness doesn't capture the whole of what is satisfying about that experience. There's something more than just a feeling that causes you to feel satisfied by that experience, it seems to me. So, okay, but I'm digressing, right? So, yeah, so it's interesting. In Buddhism, we talk about striving for happiness, different kinds of happiness, but I don't remember seeing a list for like what brings happiness. Like there's these things that bring happiness. And actually in this book, The Happier, there's a list of 12 things. Actually, I just shortened it down to 5, so we can have to fit in our time frame. But so is there a succinct list of things that bring happiness? Well, I mean, you can kind of, pick and choose from different presentations. Like, well, the main thing is one thing: virtue, or positive karma, merit or positive karma. So when you have a positive motivation, a motivation to benefit yourself or benefit others, and then motivated by that, you engage in an action. That action is virtuous. I mean, it can be a mental action or a verbal action or a physical action. So an intentional action is virtuous. So it's like you create a seed of like a positive karma in your mind stream, which will produce happiness in the future. So the cause of happiness is always virtue. Actually, in Buddhism we say every pleasant experience, every happy experience we have, always the main cause is always a virtuous action, a virtuous karma that you created in the past. Every experience of suffering is a non-virtuous karma that you created in the past. So like when we have the intention to harm others or steal others, harm others, like by stealing or killing or lying or whatever, and we engage in that, then we create negative karma, which results in suffering. So, in one way, the main cause of happiness is engaged in virtue. But then how do you make your actions virtuous? You generate positive motivation. That's why at the beginning of the session we did this short meditation on loving kindness or metta, trying to think, whatever happens today or whatever happens in the next hour, first of all, may it be beneficial for me. You don't have to know what you're going to do, you don't have to know how, but may it contribute to my well-being. Right? And then not only yourself, because everyone else that we know, they all want well-being, happiness as well. So that, and all of our well-being, happiness depends upon others, countless others. So naturally, we should also think about others and generate motivation. So this is a really good practice you can do every morning. First thing in the morning when you wake up, think, whatever happens today, and whatever I do today, especially any intentional actions I do today, may they only contribute to the well-being of myself and others, and may they not cause the suffering of myself and others whatsoever. So then with a motivation like that, then everything we do during that day is colored by this positive motivation and becomes virtuous. Right? So it becomes the cause of happiness of ourselves and others. So main thing is that motivation. Virtuous actions. How do actions become virtuous? Because of a positive motivation. So spend time generating positive motivation. There's many, many different ways to generate positive motivation. Different ways to think. So then, how do you generate positive motivation? Well, you have to learn how the mind works. What are positive thoughts and emotions, or versus destructive thoughts and emotions. So there's a whole list of like 11 virtuous attitudes and 6 root afflictive emotions and 22 secondary afflictive emotions. So basically we have to study and contemplate and meditate and learn about all the different kinds of thoughts and emotions and different kinds of states of mind that we have. Which ones are destructive and cause disturbance in the mind, which ones are positive and lead to more peace and more awareness and satisfaction. And then learn how to reduce the one and increase the others. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Then you two who didn't raise your hands, do you want to raise your hands now?
It's covered it.
Okay.
Nothing much. Basically,
Okay.
the main thing is nihilistic is when you are just going in a negative thinking but not taking any action, right? Positive.
Not really taking any positive action. Yeah, kind of not thinking like for some people they kind of think happiness is just unrealistic. Like either it happens or it doesn't. Whatever I do doesn't matter. And there can be different forms of that. Like some person might think, well, everything is just chaos, so everything is random or anarchical, so that whatever actions I do, there's no connection between my intentional actions and the kind of results that I achieve. So then it becomes a sort of like nothing matters. Then what's the point? It'll become very, I don't know, cynical. Exactly, cynical is the word. Become very cynical about everything. Then that is leads to, it's detrimental now. It's also detrimental in the future, long term. Okay, Ranakar?
Yeah, I just thought of plotting, say, myself into these 4 quadrants.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And I came to the conclusion it is not possible to be just in one quadrant at the same time. So one will be in more than one quadrant at a given point of time in his life.
At the same time? In the same moment? Same second?
No.
No?
If one just plots right now the state of the condition of self, then one would have a little bit of rat race attitude, one would have a little bit of happiness attitude, one would have a little bit of resistance.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so rather than putting a point to where I am, it will form a little bit of a shape,
Sure, yeah.
So part of it will be the rat race, part of it will be the happiness, part
So
of
what shape were you?
So, yeah, I'll tell you, I'm in rat race, hedonistic and happiness. In these 3 quadrants will be my kind of shape.
But percentages?
Depends on how much area you cover in one quadrant.
Yeah.
So it's possible in hedonistic you will have a little less area. And in happiness you may have a lot of area. In rat race also you may have a lot of area.
True, yeah, true.
So depending on which kind of personality one has, the shapes will change, I guess. So
true, yeah, and different times in life. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I was thinking, and in relation to different people, you might play out different kind of dramas, no? Like I could think of, in relation to one set of people, I'm very much like rat race. But in relation to another set of people, I'm more hedonistic. In relation to another set of circumstances, I'm more kind of happiness.
It's different.
But it's a kind of helpful, it's supposed to be just kind of a helpful tool to help, understand the dynamics at work and our expectations and our actions in different,
So just try to extrapolate it, where would Buddha be?
Where would the Buddha be? Yeah.
So Buddha would not have a shape, my conclusion, please correct me. Buddha will not have a shape, he will just have a point. Rather, he will be the only person who will really have a point, and that point will be on the farthest end of the present and on the farthest end of the future. So he will be on the right hand top point.
Yeah, up here.
That's perfect. So
sure,
he won't have an area, he will just cover one point.
Yeah.
Most of the human beings will have an area. So
yeah, it's true. The Buddha there would be a perfect harmony of satisfaction now and long-term benefit. It would be perfectly harmonized. So every moment is the most possible enjoyable and the most possible beneficial for the future. Yeah, it would be like that. Yeah. Yes, Abba?
Are you happier after you give up your layman's life? That's the first part of the question. And the second part is,
putting me on the spot.
The second part is that now that you know how to be happier, presuming that you are happy.
Presuming the answer to the question for part one is yes.
Implement what you know into a layman's life.
Would I what? The second?
Yeah, how would you implement what you know about
Oh, what I know now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had you still been a layman?
Yeah. Well, first of all, yes, I'm happier now than I was as a layperson before. But that's not necessarily because I'm ordained. I think it's because I spend more time practicing Dharma, or trying to practice Dharma. So that, I mean, and that's kind of the main reason I became ordained, was because I knew I'd have more time to practice Dharma. And there'd be more supportive conditions to... I mean, but then again, what does it mean to practice Dharma? That's a difficult question. Yeah. Yeah. It's a difficult question. It's a great question. It's an excellent question. It's a question we can help us learn more and more and more all the time. But I mean, before I became ordained, I kind of spent 1 year in Taiwan. I was teaching English, and that was my experimental year. Like at the beginning of the year, I already thought, yeah, maybe I want to become a monk, but I want to take 1 year just to kind of, experience lay life more and take a measure of if I want to do, if that's really, because it's a lifetime commitment, it's like marriage, so that's really what I want to do or not. So that year I found very helpful. I would split each day into 2 halves. From the morning, the time I woke up, until about noon, I would spend time practicing Dharma, which for me that time meant, doing prayers, meditating, doing like preliminary practices like prostrations and making offerings and reading Dharma books and stuff like that. And then the second half of my day, because I was a teacher at a private schools, so I would teach English to kids after they finished school. So some finish, after the morning, some finish in the afternoon. So I would teach for like 3 to 9 at night, 3 after 9 at night, I teach English. So the second half of the day, I would spend time just eating and making money and hanging out with people and stuff like that. And yeah, I consistently found like the first part of the day much more enjoyable than the second half of the day. So that was kind of my conclusion. Yeah, if I spend more time like just doing Dharma practices, then I think my life will be happier than if I spend more time doing like lay things, like working for money and just hanging out, eating and talking with friends and stuff like that. And yeah, basically I found that to be true since I've been a monk. Yeah, I mean, to be around other Dharma practitioners, to be able to spend time reading, Buddhist teachings and commentaries on, and then doing prayers, doing meditation, going to Dharma teachings. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I feel so lucky. Yeah, but actually it's like, I was saying, we come back to a baseline state all the time. It's like that with monk's life too. At first you're like, oh wow, now I don't have to work anymore. I don't have to go to weddings. I can just like, hang out in the monastery. But you quickly come back to a baseline state where the grass always looks greener on the other side. So I find I easily, and also the negativity bias, I guess. Instead of remembering how fortunate my circumstances is, I easily think about how I wish things would be better. I guess that's another thing. How I wish it wasn't quite like this. I wish it was I could spend more time doing this, or I could spend, I'd rather be doing this than this. So I easily find, things that I don't like about the circumstances I'm in. Even if I think about it in a bigger way, I'm really fortunate, but can easily find things I don't like and things I'd like to change about it. Which on one hand, it helps to change, because we do want to search for things that we could improve about our circumstances all the time, because that leads us to progress. If we didn't do that at all, there's a danger we just become static, yeah, and kind of totally lethargic in a way. But it can go too far to where you're never content. You don't have any contentment and satisfaction. So then, yeah. But how would I? Yeah, I guess I would. Based on my experience as an ordained person versus a lay person, I would advise just try to simplify your life as much as you can. Simplify the amount of time you have to spend on figuring out what to eat or what to wear. Like when I visit my mother in the United States, it's like there's so much time and energy put into shopping for food, deciding what to eat, then shopping for food, then making the food, then cleaning up after. It's like, oh my God, I mean, half the life is just spent eating, the whole process of eating. So, not to fault my mother, she's so wonderful, and when I'm there, of course, she wants to really give me the best possible food, which is, out of her kindness for me and her love for me. But yeah, but simplify as much as it's simple. I mean, that's why we wear the same clothes every day as monks. So we don't have to think about what am I going to wear today. We don't have to put together outfits. Yeah, or like Steve Jobs, and the same thing. Just wear the same thing every day. I mean, maybe that's not practical, but in general, you can simplify. Simplify what you wear, simplify what you eat, simplify your schedule. Kind of, are there social kind of commitments that you have, or like email groups you're part of, or WhatsApp groups you're part of that you don't really need to be part of all that activity. Every time you check a message, that's time taken. It's mental attention. There's a limited time in life, So, and there's a limited space that you have in your attention. So, try to simplify and focus more of that on Dharma in a positive way, in a way that's really meaningful to you, that's really constructive to you, and be more. I think, well, maybe we can always use a little more self-discipline. But also, I don't know, be more aware about the quality of the time, how we use our time. Do we really use it in a way that has a high degree of quality, rather than just doing a lot? Oftentimes we get caught up in just doing a lot of things, and we get attached to like speed, doing a lot of things. To do a lot of things, we have to do them fast, so that there's a lot of things done, and then. Yeah. And so a lot of quantity. I mean, a lot is a quantity rather than quality. So put more focus on quality, and then, yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of being a monk too, there's a lot to do with, or a nun is, like, I think there's something we miss out on these days is looking, like, don't forget the past. Like, don't think that we're the only person trying to be happy. In the history of the world, there's never been anybody trying to have a happy life before. For thousands of years, there have been other people who've done the same, tried to find what is the most fulfilling, what is the happiest life. So there's a huge body of wisdom that's been built up and passed down from generations, in the different religious traditions, different philosophical traditions, in all different ways, in artistic, artistic traditions, and the word literature and art. There's a huge body of wisdom that humankind has built up about how to have a meaningful, how to have a happy life. So oftentimes we don't look at that. We don't research. We don't read. We don't try to find out what did Confucius say about this? What did Plato say about this? What does the Bhagavad Gita say about it? What do the Vedas say about it? What does the Bible say about this? So there's all this wisdom that can benefit us and really help us make progress quickly in our quest to become a happier person. But if we just don't, we don't expose ourselves to that, and we just kind of try to struggle and plod along on our own, then our progress will be very slow. So yeah, I would advise spend more time reading things that are meaningful. That rather than spend half an hour every day reading the newspaper and what's happening in the Trump's impeachment trial, and what's happening in sub-Saharan Africa, and what's happening with this latest movie star and stuff. Spend a half hour every day reading like the Tao Te Ching, or the Rumi, the Sufis, or something that's really going to benefit your mind. Subhashini? And this is the last question, then we'll do some meditation.
You come from a very different culture.
Yeah.
And you made this choice to come to a country which is very different from yours, a lifestyle which is very different.
Yeah.
I'm talking at the social level.
Sure.
And then to go ahead at the religious level, from what I have gathered, you have a Catholic background. And they're very particular, and they feel there's even this whole distinction between Catholics and Protestants, and within Protestants 110. So in that
120.
Sorry?
120. I'm just
Maybe.
joking.
In that context,
Yeah.
how come you thought of taking on a religion or moving from a particular lifestyle and religion that you had
Yeah.
to a very different kind of a lifestyle and religion?
Yeah, there's not one answer for all those, because each of those changes had their own reason at that time. like before I even knew anything about Buddhism, I already had it with Catholicism. You know? I mean, I'd already given up Catholicism, basically, before I even heard of Buddhism. So that wasn't, so like Buddhism wasn't a part of my deciding not to be Catholic, right? So, and then like moving to India was not really part of being Buddhist, actually, because I already came to India. I came to India to learn about meditation in general. I wasn't specifically interested in Buddhism. You know? So it's like, and then becoming a monk was like something else again. But they each kind of built on each other. So now when I look back, yeah, it's all part of one story. But at the time when I decided I didn't really want to be Catholic, that was its own decision. But then that kind of opened up a new set of possibilities, right? But well, then if I'm not going to be Catholic, I'm not going to believe in a creator God, then what do I believe in? So that opens up a whole new set of questions. And then I studied like Western philosophy, but didn't find anything very helpful there. But then I learned about meditation, and I found, oh, I really like meditation. But then, so that interest in meditation led me to a whole new set of questions. Well, like, how can I learn more about meditation? What are the different kinds of meditation that are possible to do? So then that led me, eventually to like India. And then in India, we'll learn about, okay, we'll study different kinds of meditation. Well, who explains what and how? Then led me to the Tibetan Buddhism. And then in Tibetan Buddhism, there's all different kinds again, right? So then, if I want to incorporate this sort of, well actually it's the Nalanda tradition of Buddhism into my own life, then what's the best way to do that? As a layperson, how would that work? Then are there other options? Well, yeah, I could become a monk. And then how would that work, in terms of, living my life? So then, yeah. But I'm very grateful to India. And if it wasn't for India and it being a democracy and opening its doors to the Tibetan people in exile and having upheld the Buddhist teachings for thousands of years, then I wouldn't, the life I enjoy so much now would be impossible. And, and allowing allowing a foreigner to live here. Like I was just talking with Venerable about, like Nepal, they have Tibetan Buddhism, but they make it almost impossible for foreigners to live there for a long time. So India is so generous to let so many foreigners come to India and stay here and learn about and enjoy so much that's available in the culture. So I'm very grateful for that.
Even your identity, you're given a different name.
Yeah, also, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How did that feel?
Maybe I'll tell you over lunch. Yeah, we're almost out of time, so I want to do a little bit of meditation before we stop. We can talk later. So we only have 7 minutes left. So remember, when we were at the beginning, we generated a motivation. We're thinking about, whatever I do for the next few hours may be beneficial for myself, and then may be beneficial for someone else, at least one other person, right? And I asked you to think about, at the end of that, think about, well, what was the degree of strength to which you could generate that attitude. So now I want to do a little experiment, because the last thing I talked about was gratitude, general gratitude. So now the person that you thought about, this being beneficial for that other person, either one person or a whole group of people. So now we'll spend 3 minutes trying to generate a sense of gratitude for that person, right? So how do we generate gratitude? Think of all the different ways, directly or indirectly, known or unknown, that person has or might have helped you, benefited you, right? So try to generate a sense of gratitude for that person or that set of people. And then we'll again meditate on the wish to benefit that person and see if there's any difference when we combine loving kindness based on gratitude versus just loving kindness that we did at the beginning. Okay, so for 3 minutes, focus on the same person or group of individuals you thought about before, and try to generate a sense of gratitude directed towards them. And then, again, try to generate the wish that whatever I do in this life, especially today, may it all benefit this person or this group of people. Just like we did before, but now not limited to 3 hours, just in general or today or your whole life, whatever actions I do, especially those, whatever actions I do in general, may it benefit not only myself, but also this other person or group of people towards whom I've been generating gratitude. So just meditate like that for a couple minutes. Okay, so you can relax your attention. So then finally we dedicate the merit. So at the beginning, we generate a motivation, positive attention. At the end, we again generate a positive attention. But here, on the basis of all the positive energy, the merit we've collected, the virtuous karma we've created together during the session, so we dedicate that all. So we generate a positive attention, wishing that by the force of that, may positive things, may good results come about in the future. So by all the merit we've created, this now together in the past, by ourselves and all the merit created by others, and we can rejoice, think how excellent it is. Think everything positive oneself has done up to this life, in this life up to now, and positive things and actions done by all other sentient beings. How wonderful, how excellent it is. And with the force of all this positive energy, may every sentient being, may oneself and every sentient being be free from every form of suffering, of body, speech and mind, be free from physical illness, mental illness, relationship problems, confusion, anxiety, depression. May all those who are thinking of suicide find relief, find companionship, find assistance to see the meaning in life, see reasons to go on living. Those who are lonely, may they have companionship. Those who are hungry and thirsty, may they have food and drink. Those who are sick, may they have medicine and medical care. May all beings have access to education and live in peace, free from fear, violence, oppression. So in short, may every sentient being be free from every form of suffering. And may none of our actions cause slight of suffering whatsoever to ourselves or others. And may every sentient being live in peace, happiness, prosperity, having enjoyment, satisfaction both in the short term and the long term, and enjoying life in a way such that it leads from happiness to greater happiness in this life and future lives, up to liberation from samsara, full enlightenment. And especially may beings who have a very high level of realization, may they continue to guide us from life to life. Especially may some of the major causes of suffering in the world, so war and especially climate breakdown, may human society find a solution to eliminate these problems, reverse climate breakdown, eliminate war and other forms of violence and oppression, and create a perfect, peaceful place for Dharma practice in the world. And if you have any private prayers for anyone you know who's sick or has died recently and so forth, then bring that person to mind, with those intentions to mind. Especially the grandfather of one of the former volunteers at the center, Darima's grandfather. His name? Sad? I don't remember. Anyway, it's okay. But her grandfather, he died recently. May he take quickly take a precious human rebirth and meet whatever conditions are most beneficial for his progress on the spiritual path. And may this Dharma Center, Choe Ling, continue to flourish and expand. May we find a new premises that we can own ourselves and have expanded facilities to offer more programs to people. And may all of the actions of this center only may they fulfill the wishes of His Holiness Dalai Lama and Lama Geshe, never cause the slightest displeasure to the Holy Mind, and benefit countless beings now and in the future, now and in the future. And may we have all supportive circumstances to be able to fulfill the wishes of the spiritual guides of the center. So thank you all for coming, giving such good attention for the whole time, and participating in discussion and meditation and so forth. So again, please come for Lama Zopa Rinpoche's talk tomorrow night at 6 here, and hope we meet again in the future. Okay. Take care.
Friends, you can just, the tables can get there, the books there in the small cushion. The bigger ones, just stack it up here because we'll again sweep it and mop it tomorrow.
And please consider making a donation towards Buddhist teaching and first teachings at the center.